You're dialed in to Byron Velvick's Fish Tales. Real talk, real tactics, and the stories that make it all worthwhile. Byron Velvick's Fish Tales is brought to you by Livingston Lures, Trika Fishing, Mercury Outboards, and Camus Boats. Without further ado, here's Byron.
It's the Byron Show. Right on.
Byron Velvick Fish Tales. Oh my gosh. Well, let me start off. I got to tell you what's happening in these Fish Tales. We got Bobby Barrack on, and I got to start by telling you my favorite story about Bobby Barrack is Bobby's going to have a lot of stories to tell. Bobby, you're going to have a lot of stories to tell. But I got to start with my story, and it's the one that means the most to me because Bobby, you and I have been friends for a long time. And you have always helped me. And the one thing that was my nemesis was tides. Tides. I'm Lake Mead. I'm Lake Mojave. I'm Havasu. I'm the Southern California lakes. And then we got tides, right? And I got to start fishing tides. And Bobby starts helping me understand tides. But here's where it gets kind of crazy. I got to go back east and fish tides. And I got to figure out how to fish tides back east. And Bobby Barrack sits me down on the couch at the house. Stacy gets us something to drink. We're sitting there shooting it. And we're talking. He goes, Byron, he goes, I'm going to give you the best advice. He goes, when you go back east, and this was gold, Bobby. Sure, gold, Jerry. Gold, Jerry. This was the stuff. You tell me, find an area you think is good and just sit there and ride it out because I don't want you to run around the Potomac, the James River, the Delaware River, and get sideways on the tide and be in the right place at the wrong time. He goes, I want you to find a place. This is what Bobby tells me. Find a place where the tide is, where the area seems to have fish, and just let it marinate. Just stay there. So Bobby, to his credit, Bobby, your credit, because you're here watching this, Bobby, I literally went to the Potomac right off the bat, young angler. I'm fishing tournaments all over the country, but I go back east. I'm at the Potomac. I find this area, and I stay there, and I just fish through all the tides. I make a check. Next time I go to the Potomac, I make a check. Then we're going to the Delaware River. This is towards the end of my career. We're going to the Delaware. 7-foot tide. I didn't win the thing, but you know, it's Philadelphia. Mike Iaconelli, right? But a 7-foot tide, and Bobby's like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, it's a 7-foot swing every day. So I find an area at the Delaware River, and it's 2000. I got the notes here. 2014 Delaware River. Mike Iaconelli is the hometown favorite, but I find an area thanks to Bobby Barrack. I camp on it, and this is what's cool is that because of Bobby, I got to see them when the tide's coming in. Those marker buoys. I put marker buoys out there, and all the little marker buoys are going this way. And there's a little current eddy around the marker buoys, and I'm catching them. But then all of a sudden, the marker buoys get about straight, and everything starts to slow down. Then the marker buoys are just dangling in the water on a 7-foot differential tide, right? They're just sitting there. And I stopped getting bit altogether. I mean, it's done. It's over. And then all of a sudden, the marker buoys start going down the river, and there's a little eddy going the other way, and they start eating again. And these windows are going, right? Yeah. Bobby Barrack, 4 days on the Delaware River. By the 4th day, I got a camera guy in the boat with me. And I go, bro, when those marker buoys are slack like this, we can sit down, put the cameras down, eat lunch, have a drink, let's talk to each other. There's no point making a cast when those marker buoys are just sitting there straight up. And so Bobby Barrack, you, my friend, Bobby Barrack, you taught me to fish the tide, stay in an area. I finished 10th at the Delaware River. Iaconelli, Iaconelli. He goes, I don't know how you found that spot because he'd come running by wanting to fish it, and I never left it for 4 days. Never left. One area. There might have been a boat wreck down there. There might have been some gravel, some rocky stuff. I don't even know what was down there. But what I do know is that I knew I caught a couple fish in practice. I said, I'm going to listen to my buddy Bobby. I'm going to stay in one spot. And I got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of a whole day's worth of tide. And that's my Bobby Barrack story to start off Fish Tales with Bobby Barrack. And there it is, buddy.
That is so good.
That's so you. Good. That's all you.
Yeah, and for those Spanish-speaking listeners, that's muchos años ago. So that was a long time ago when we started talking about the tide thing. I remember you had to go back there, and part of that conversation that we had, I said, when you get your little area that you're gonna marry for 2 or 3 days, hopefully you get 1.5 areas, 2 areas that you're going to marry for those 3 days. Wherever you think you can catch the biggest fish in that place, be there on the high switch. Be there on the high switch.
I
and
remember this.
I don't know if we could text back then or whatever. You called me on your way back or whatever, and you said I had big fish on one of the days or the tournament. I can't remember. It's a 5 or 7 pounder. I can't remember. And you said I caught it right on a high switch, dude.
At the
And
Potomac.
you were so impressed, and I could hear that, like you were like, and it was a premeditated catch. I mean, and that's the beauty of the title thing. You are sitting there. You're sitting there in an area expecting something to happen, and then it happens. And
Yes.
it's like, what is bass fishing, right? For the most part, bass fishing is borderline insanity because you've been fishing, you've been throwing this giant swim bait, especially what you do, giant swim baits, all this stuff. Dude, I've been throwing this giant swim bait for 4 hours over and over and over. Anybody if somebody had the patience to watch me, they'd be like, that guy's insane. That guy is borderline insane. That guy's crazy because he's throwing a chunk of like old school Alan Cole. He's throwing this thing like that with a
Right.
surf rod or whatever. And he keeps doing this. It's like he's just practicing his casting or he's practicing his patience or he's practicing all of the above. And then finally things change. And finally you start to do this after three
Right.
and a half, 4 hours of doing the same stuff. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting it to change. And then
Right.
finally it does. So is bass fishing borderline insanity? I think it is. It's got its aspects of it.
You know, and the greatest thing I remember about I told a lot of guys this story when Bobby Barrack called me up after the Clear Lake event. You were the only person, Bobby, to say, I don't care that you caught 83 pounds, 5 ounces. You beat Skeet Reese. But he goes, you asked me, you said, what did you lose? And I wanted to reach you the phone and hug you because Bobby had the wherewithal to know, bro, he goes, if you put 83.5 in the boat in 3 days, what did you lose in 2000 when you set that record? And I go, Bobby, nobody wants to hear about what I lost. I'm like, and I remember wanting to cry on the phone. You remember Bobby? I go, dude, when you catch 83 pounds, every big one I hooked, I lost on that swim bait. And
Yep.
it was one of those moments where I knew this is watching you on Bass After Dark last week. I'm like, oh my God, I got to get Bobby on Fishtails because you're telling the stories and I want to jump through the phone because my old buddy Bobby, and I'm like, that's the guy that has enough knowledge on the water to know that if you're putting 80 pounds in the boat, you're losing some magnums. You're losing
Well,
some monoliths in the process.
yeah, well, I mean, you're SoCal guy, big fish waters and all that stuff when it used to be that type of thing. I think it's getting a little bit of a comeback right now, but you like I tell people, I don't know what the exact number is over 10 that I've caught, over 8 that I've caught. I don't up to 1475, which by Southern California standards, that's a decent fish. You're not when you're in Mike Arujo territory, you're near the 18-pound thing. Now you've really done something, right?
Right,
But
right,
Bob Krufy, all those guys, 22 pounders, Danny Cadota, caught it. Ray Easley, 21-3. Those
right,
are.
right.
I remember I bought I had to have an Abu Garcia 5500C reel because Ray Easley was on the cover of Outdoor Life, March March of 1980, maybe March of 80, 81. I don't know. And Ray Easley's kneeled down like this, and he's got that brown rod with a black Abu Garcia 5500. I went to Service Merchandiser. I'm looking at the thing. Got the Banner, SG, got the Flugers, got the. God, why I need that right there. I think it was 4:7 to 1 gear ratio, something like that. I got to have it. Ray Easley had that. I'm gonna catch world record bass with this thing. And
Oh, I remember that.
I don't know what we were talking about dude, I just start bleh,
Hey,
every time I get a
what
stupid
started
little
you in
idea, run with it. But it was
what started you in fishing, Bobby? What got you started?
what got me started. My family in Texas got me started.
I mean,
I,
you've come
I,
back to Texas. You've moved back to Texas, but you were obviously we were Delta. You were a Delta route. I was just a student of yours in the Delta, but you've come back to Texas now. You started here in Texas. This is where you originally started.
well, all my family that lives here in Mod, Texas, population 900, whatever. It's always had a population of 500. Now it's up to 900. Um, all my family, the roots of our families, right here, Mama, Papa, own the White Squirrel restaurant over. You don't know anything about Mod, Texas. You don't know anything about the history of Mod, Texas, unless you sat down and ate at the White Squirrel Cafe that was down there by the railroad tracks, and that was my papa's place. Anyway, but back in the '70s, it burned down. So anyway, we just they all, very small, suppressed, not the greatest economy down here unless you work for the Army depot over there. So a lot of them went out to California to get the jobs and make the money, and so they could come back here. And they all had property, but they didn't have no money. So a lot of them went to California. And what they found, they're all, they're all a bunch of hillbilly rednecks like me. And when you get out to California, you're looking for something that kind of resembles Texas. Just give me
Right.
something kind of, sort of like Texas. And they found the Tracy Wildlife Association, which is in the south part of the Delta, down there around Tracy Oasis Marina, Hindbuckles Harbor. It's the shallowest, one of the most remote areas of the Delta, and that's where I cut my teeth. And all my cousins, that's what we did. On the weekends, we would be out there and we would fish. And anyway, a few of them made it out there, and then they all came back to Texas one at a time, one at a time. My mom met my dad out there. That's how I ended up out there. But everybody else came
Wow.
back here. So, but through the years, I would spend my summers out here with Nana and Uncle Tommy and Larry Travis and Robert and those guys. We would pond hop here. This is how you do a Texas rig. Man, that's cool. My cousin Robert and Travis. Larry taught me how to crappie fish. Larry taught me how to catfish, which I think it's really important for kids that don't be just a bass fisherman. Learn how to fish for different species, man. It'll keep you
So true.
It'll
Yeah.
keep you do some saltwater stuff. I don't care what you do, but don't just focus on largemouth. It'll burn you out. You gotta
Right.
there's so much downtime with bass fishing. There's so much no catching, lots of work and very minimal catching. So go to keep your love for fishing, you gotta get a tight line a lot. So just I don't care if it's whatever it is, bluegill with a cane pole, whatever it is, watching the cork go down. Just your love for fishing, you gotta keep feeding that.
When
And
did you figure out
so
the tide was? When did you figure out the tide was something hot? Like
it was,
you are so good at tide, but you grew up with tide your whole life. Then at the Delta, like that's been your backyard is to watch it go up and down all the time, right?
you know what? It's our family. It was Uncle Eldridge, it was Aunt Jimmy and Merle and David and Debbie
Wow.
and Francis, and our whole family would be on the rocks down there at Tracy Wildlife Association. They were some of the charter members. They were members down there in 1953. They were some of the charter members in the South Delta. I was born in '64, but they started down there, and the whole family be on the rocks with cane poles and big old cork bobbers like this, and they get their clams and they hit them together and crack a clam and put it on a big old hook, and they'd fill up their baskets with catfish, and then they would take them back to the Bay Area. They all lived in San Leandro, Hayward, and but the Delta was their little piece of Texas while they were
Yeah.
kind of stuck out there. And so we belong to the Tracy Wildlife Center. But what I noticed when we would camp out there for the weekends, I noticed that the catfish, it was so weird. And this is like 9, 10, 11, 8 to 12 years old. I started to understand that if there was a black line on the rocks, the catfishing got really good. If I was fishing before just like what you started the show with, if I was fishing and there was no black line, the bobber wouldn't go down very much. But the bigger that black line got, the more you crack them clams, you put it on, you drop that cork, and it'd start going like this. As that black line got bigger on that outgoing tide.
Right.
And then it would get to a point where they would just, it's over, it's done. So I would get stressed out. I had my cane pole, I had my spinning rod, and there was a big, by the swim lagoon over there was a big like pond, like a 3-acre pond that had a bunch of bluegill, had these really cool green fish with a black line down the side that were like, whoa. And I had these little spinners, these shiny things that we had a Daredevil spoon that I bought at Thrifty's for 62 cents or whatever, a cotton cordell spinnerbait with a vinyl skirt that was, if you could get it unfried from your lime green 3-tray Plano tackle box, because it was part of the tackle box. It was right next to the hula popper that had the skirt was actually the hula popper and the cotton cordell spinnerbait they were one. They were one.
They were together. They burned together.
They were like family. And then you had the cast. I think there was a Castmaster spinner, and then like in my dad. And then as time went by, like maybe I'm 14, 16, you got to raid Dad's tackle box because I started to when I could drive. It was about 16. We could go over to some of the little small ponds behind the community college over there had duckweed on top of it, and I knew that when we would go get bullfrogs down at Tracy Wildlife Association, these bullfrogs every once in a while you'd move these bullfrogs and that moss would go like this, or the duckweed or moss or whatever, this green stuff that floated. That wasn't one of them frogs. That was a fish. That was a fish.
Oh,
These there's something. I don't want to get anywhere near. When I go swimming, I stay away from that green stuff because there's some stuff.
those are piranha. Those are little
Whatever
baby
that is.
alligators.
Yeah, whatever. Right? I don't know what's happening. Anyway, I start messing around with that Bill Plummer super frog. My dad had one of them. Bill Plummer's.
Yeah. So what's a Bill Plummer super frog?
A Bill Plummer super frog is it's just this. It looks like a golf ball with some legs hanging down, and it's got this little wired little Mickey Mouse little thing. And I would take that thing because I needed something that was weedless.
Was it weedless? Was this super frog weedless?
It was semi-weedless, man. It had the hook underneath. It like if you got a frog like this, the hook was exposed underneath like this, but it had this wire little deal like this.
Okay.
This big old foam head. It was very primitive looking, but I got bit on that thing every once in a while. I could never land them because I'm using like 10-pound test yellow strength, right? Like
So you would have them eat it. You would throw it out there in the stuff, and they would eat it, and you'd be like, I can't even put a hook.
Or they would try to get it. Or I would get I'd get them on, they'd come off, and I got all the stuff all over it. I'm like, man, this is whatever. And then my cousins, I would come back here, and Robert especially, he would show me how to throw a purple worm with a white tail from this place called Bass Pro Shops. Or we got these other ones, black with the chartreuse tail or black with a pink tail. We get those from Toledo Tackle. And we got to take a ride for about an hour and a half, about 2 hours, go to this Toledo Tackle place because they had really great crappie jigs too, red and chartreuse. We got to go get some.
Right.
They were called crickets. They were called crickets. Anyway, so he showed me how to do this Texas rig thing, where you put the weight, you line through the weight, and you put the hook on there, and you put it, and you can throw this thing. You could throw this thing into a bale. You could throw it into a hayfield and get it back without getting stuck.
Right. Right.
Awesome. Are you kidding me? And
Put it anywhere.
Huh?
Go ahead. Put it anywhere.
We would go pond hopping, and then we have an H&H spinnerbait, which is the most primitive spinnerbait ever, but it's responsible for more 5-pound plus bass in the state in the South. Period. It's just the greatest little Mickey Mouse spinnerbait ever. Just had the crane swivels with the old school. You leave them long enough and they'll rust and they won't spin anymore. The vinyl skirts. The lead looks like they hammered it out with the hammer. I mean, it's just crazy. And it's got the stupid little double hook that you got to put on yourself. But we did that, and they would say, "Hey, do you want to go pond hopping or do you want to go to the lake?" Shoot, I want to go pond hopping. Because pond hopping, you're gonna go catching if you go pond hopping. You're gonna go to the lake. Anyway, but then like Robert was Robert was the bass fisherman of the group, and Travis kind of came on a little bit later. He was they all bass fished, but Robert got into bass clubs and stuff, did extremely good in bass clubs, and Robert did what you did at the Potomac. Robert would drop his boat no matter what time of the year it was. He'd drop his boat and he'd burn like 8 ounces of gas. He'd go Mike Folkstead and Frank's track is what he'd do. And
which means he just soak it. Mike Folkstead and Frank's track does not move.
Yeah, 3-day tournament on the Delta. Mike Folkstead would burn maybe 10 ounces of gas in the 3-day tournament, maybe, and that's if it was a hard idle back to Russo's. But that's what my cousin Robert would do, and he'd win Angler of the Year. He'd win. He won a couple of tournaments. He was just good with that plastic worm, good with the jig, and he's the one that taught me how to do that. And then the lily pads and stuff. Then we started doing the Johnson silver minnow, the Johnson spoon.
Yeah.
And we started using. I came back here one year. I go, what the heck is that? He goes, man, look at this right here. Look at this thing. Look at that joker. Throw that water up there. And it was a weed walker. It's just stupid piece of plastic like this. Had a little paddle wheel, looked like something you'd see on the Mississippi River going down there moving people around. You know what I'm saying?
I heard you talking about this on Bass After Dark. What is a weed whacker? You talked about this on Ken Duke's show, and I'm like, what is a weed whacker? What is that thing?
It's a weed walk, man. I don't know if I have any out there in the shop or not.
It looks like a paddle on it.
Dude, it looks like a bit. It looks like a little boat. It looks like a little. It's about
A little
it's about one.
boat.
It's about one and a half times this size. Just a big
Right.
plastic. It's got a spindle in the middle, and it's got this paddle wheel.
Okay.
When you throw it out there and wind it back fast, you start laughing until a 4-pounder eats it. Then it's all business now. But this stupid thing, and it had a vinyl skirt back here too. And they were into that vinyl skirt stuff before living rubber
Oh,
came out.
vinyl skirts. Yeah, they were something.
Yeah, right. And then so the weed walker was cool. We got bites on it. Very seldom we'd catch something with it, but we got a lot of them. Knock the crap out of it, knock it up in the air, coming through the pads. It was just unbelievable. I think that's why, still to this day, I'm a sucker for pads. If you want to. If you go to a lake, if my boat's in the parking lot and this lake right here's got lily pads, I'm fishing the lily pad someplace. I ain't fishing no ledge. I ain't fishing no drop off. I'm in the pads someplace on this lake.
Right.
And then
Right.
we would also use a moss boss, and that was just a big. It was a Johnson spoon on steroids, just a big old piece of plastic. And it had the vinyl skirt on the back of that thing too. And you just throw that stuff and just hustle it through the pads, you know. A snagless Sally. The buzz bait would
When
turn
did
on
you
its
see your
side.
first frog? When did the first frog come into your possession? I mean, you must have died when you saw that with all the
Well,
other stuff you're talking
that
about.
it was the Bill Plummer thing that got me. You know what? Let me back up for a second. The Bill Plummer thing got me. I knew when I was with the cane pole, I knew that there was some cool fish that lived underneath this green stuff. The Bill Plummer super frog, I saw someone come up to it, eat it, blow holes in the stuff. Oh, I get some of them on. I had no shot. Way underpowered with this thing. So then, after Robert showed me how to do the Texas rig thing, I started using from that place called Bass Pro Shops. I would get 6-inch black lizards, and I couldn't use too much weight. He always used the 3/16, and I'd use the 3/16, and it would go through, and I just get it snagged all the time. I've used about 32nd ounce, 16th ounce, 8th ounce.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I found that I saw this cool article where you put a toothpick in there and it stays. It'll stay. It won't slide up the line. Oh, I thought that was the greatest. I thought I was the smartest guy in the room when I saw that thing. And I throw that thing out there and I just drag that lizard across that moss. Oh, and then bass would blow through there. They go, oh my gosh, that bass was 15 pounds. You know, of course they're 3-pounders, right? But at the time you think they're all 10 pounders.
Right.
And I did that. And that was Ohlone College over there in Fremont. And then me and my buddy Shane, my best friend in high school, Shane, I had a couple of best friends, but Shane was the one that liked to fish. He was my fisherman, but and he moved to Texas here. Anyway, he's on fire for the Lord right now too. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we would go and wherever we could, we got our driver's license and we started just hustling all over the place. And we would go down to Dell's Boat Harbor, down there in the south part of the Delta, and I would call Dale and say, hey, I can't get there till 10, 11 o'clock. Could you leave one wooden rowboat? And we had a 5-horse Green Johnson motor that would start sometimes. So, but we would always take it with us, you know, and just, oh, man, I hope it starts this week, you know. And we put that thing on there. We had a Minn Kota trolling motor, and Jay Lou, I had his trolling motor. I think it was like a 18-pound thrust, 20-pound thrust. And Jay Lou put like a 40 or 50-pound thrust head on this trolling motor, and we carried 3 batteries with that, and that was our outboard when our green 5-horse Johnson wouldn't start up. And we would do the Delta thing, and we would go down to, it was called Twin Skulls, down in the South Delta, and it had that green snot on. It was close to where Trace Wildlife was, where I cut my teeth, and I'd throw that stupid thing of that black lizard over there, and then, man, I don't even know where the man's rat came to my attention somehow. I started using that man's rat. It looked like it got a little Charlie Chaplin mustache on the back, on the back here, little Mickey Mouse little mustache. Anyway, and started doing that, and I started catching a couple of these fish, you know, maybe up to like 3 pounds, but I had bigger ones on. Man, you should have seen that thing was that big, whatever. And then
how
I
old
just
are you?
started
When is this, Bobby? How old are you when this is going on? Like
this
at this
is like
time right now. How old are you? 16? We're the same age. We were both born in 64.
Yeah.
So you're 16, 17 when this is happening right now, and you're starting to discover the rat.
16 to 18 was when I really, because we were sneaking into Ohlone College. It was the greatest. There was a small pond. We pull up the side, small pond that you cast all the way across, and you can get 2 or 3 bites. You catch 2 or 3 fish out of that thing with the weedless lizard. It was all duckweed, always. 12 months out of the year is duckweed. And then you get 2 or 3 out of that, and we had to reel them over the tulies, that kind of guerrilla warfare fishing. And then we would go up to the cafeteria. We'd sneak around the backside, and we knew that this was a 1 to 3 fish thing. And then here come the security guards, and they kick you out, and they chase you with flashlights and all that kind of stuff. So I don't encourage this at home. I'm not telling any kid to go break the law, but that was our thing. We would drive 27 minutes one way just to get 2 bites. I mean, that's just messed up we were on this stuff. But and that's why. Yeah, and I know all you guys down there. So
golf courses. Oh no, I was an urban. Yeah, I was an urban warrior, Bobby. I mean, it was golf courses, it was industrial parks, it was gravel pits. I'm in Huntington Beach, California, so it's just, if it wasn't salt water, to your point, it was going out to anywhere there was water. I mean, I remember I was so addicted. This is a great story. I was so addicted to the feeling of a bite that I would get up on the rooftop of the house and we would tie bread on our fishing line and drop it down to feel the dogs. No hooks, just to feel the dogs. The dogs in the field biting. The dogs in the backyard would eat the bread off our line, but we'd feel a thump. And we'd get a kick out of feeling the dogs eating the bread off the fishing line because we had nowhere to go fishing because we were in suburbia. You know what I mean? I mean, it was like driving your bike, riding a bike, anywhere you could go, there was water to possibly get a bite because we were the same age and we were also obviously crazy hooked on fishing.
Yeah. And I know that Brent Ayler was like that. I heard stories of his mom dropping him off. Aaron was like that. Carol used to drop him off and he'd walk. And that was back in the day when you could do that with your kids. Drop them off at the lake, and I'll pick you up at 5 after I get off work or something like that. Of course, you can't do that in a whole lot of areas anymore. But
well, you committed to that. You committed to the Delta, and then you became this tidal guru. And I was watching Bass After Dark, and I was thinking to myself, I got a lake here in San Antonio area. Great Lake has grass. If there's no tide, you were talking about wind current. I mean, I'm just trying to pick your brain now because I get a chance to. I was on the chat that night. I was on the live chat. Then I was involved with everybody else, and they're all talking about it, and they were digging the info you were throwing out. And they're like, I got to rewind this. I got to watch this again. Bobby is just throwing golden nuggets out there all the time. Tide, moon phase. Lakes with no tide is one of my curiosities. Like. Now, with what you know, Bobby, about fishing grass and frogs and vegetation and kind of getting off of that vegetation from Bass After Dark, like all the other lakes that don't have tide, what are some of your great recommendations for guys that want to fish grass, frogs, vegetation, and they don't have the luxury of moving water like you had for 7,500 days on the Delta?
Well, I mean, like you said in the beginning, how you had buoys, you had a visual thing, you had a couple of visual things that were going on, and you had an understanding of what you were looking for. So that kind of man, I hate to use the word simple, I hate to use the word easy whenever you're talking about fishing, but that simplifies and makes your search a little bit easier because you got some visual aids here. You're expecting something to happen if that starts or if that stops. So that keeps my interest up. That keeps my confidence up. I think I understand this to where if that water gets up to there, something cool is going to happen because I have seen this happen twice. I've now seen this happen 77 times. I've now seen this happen 2,700 times. So it becomes very predictable. And so you are putting yourself in position for something to happen that might be this or it might be that. Getting back to when I asked you, I know you're all, dude, I called you and I said, dude, congratulations on your win. You were jacked. You're pumped. Dude, you set a record. Yes, forget about all that. One question for you, dude. I want to know what came off because you do not lose big ones unless you're fishing for big ones. You don't catch big ones consistently unless you're fishing for big ones consistently. So once you understand when these things should start to happen, especially on a tidal place like the delta, or wherever. Now you can start to whittle. I know that when those planets line up, I'm going to have, if I take a spinnerbait and go down that wall with that flooded brush, or that rock wall that's got some tules on it now that have 13 inches of water, whereas 4 hours ago those tules had no water on them. Um,
Right.
and I start to understand that if I go down those tules with the shallow running BDS3, BDS2, product pattern, spring crawl, whatever, and it's, whatever. We won't get into moon phase and all that stuff. But I have found that during this period of time when that water's doing this in that situation, in an hour and a half, or let's say 2 hours, in a 2 hour span, while I'm waiting for these planets to line up, I might catch a dozen fish. It might be one of those days where I catch 18, 21 fish. But let's
Right.
be real. Let's be real here. When I do that, my best 5 fish on the average, they weigh 11 to 14 pounds, my best 5, during this 2 hour period of time. Yeah, okay. At first, we just want to catch as many as we can. And then we get to the point where we start to get more selective. We start to get a little more confidence in ourselves and understand a little bit more about what we're doing. I don't need to get 18 bites. I don't need to catch 18 fish. I don't need that. I need to get 3 to 6 bites. I need to get 3 to 7 bites. Well,
Right.
and you start to work in that. Instead of doing this, if I do this, that specific, I'm doing the pattern inside the pattern, the spot inside the spot inside the spot. When you
Right.
start to get that dialed on it, and you've got this 2 hour thing, it's a slower process. It's quantity versus quality. And then when you
Right.
start to move into that, and my thing, and so it was either a topwater thing or it was a punching thing. And so either technique that I used in that high probability window, it was high quality techniques, minimal bites, high quality. I can't lose them because there's no coming back. Because like you said, when the buoys stop moving, this thing's over. You can have the
Right.
greatest golden shiner. You can have the greatest conditioned night crawler. I know you probably had that book too. I had the Buck Perry spoon plugging is the key to success. And I have the
Yeah.
how do you condition gut crawlers? Because we fished Lake Chabot, which was our closest, that was our closest. I was so infatuated with San Diego, LA, Lake Casitas, Cachuma, Isabella, Otay, Miramar, Sandy, all those 20-pound. I wanted to catch a 20-pound. The closest thing we had to SoCal stuff was Lake Chabot. And a couple of these guys were night crawler specialists. 8-pound
Mhm.
test, no weight. Number 6, number 8 beagle claw. They literally raised their night crawlers, and they would bring them down to the lake in these little styrofoam things, and they treated them like they were their kids, man. And they would free line them things, and it was just anyway. I don't know. I start talking about all kinds of stuff. I get off track.
No, I got a whole list of questions here, and I'm gonna be asking a bunch of them. And I got to ask you because I know you talk about moon phase. I know there's a million things to it. Can I go on the Farmer's Almanac and get any kind of a hint on how you feel about moon phase, or is there any just general? Because John Cox was your co-guest on Bass After Dark, right? And I was watching it, and even John was sitting there thinking, man, I wonder what Bobby can tell us right now about Moonface that he could take to the next tournament. If he's going to fish a tournament when there's no tide, and a lot of the lakes, obviously, you're just fishing lakes, but Moonface is constant everywhere we go, right, Bobby? Are you looking at me?
Yeah, the blinking light. I hope our audio and everything's okay. Is the video feed good?
Yeah, I think it's good. Move your camera up just a little bit. I mean, if you could move, can you move the camera up? Because I see more of your chin and your eyes. Other way. Can you bring it
Other
up so
way.
I can see the top of your hat?
This.
Bring it.
This
No,
one.
yeah, come up higher. Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's good. There's more of your
Okay.
face, your pretty face.
The purple thing. Anyway, one of the things that Jeff and John Cox both said was, yeah, well, we have a tournament, and we can't pick the tides. We can't pick the dates. I said, I'm with you. So you can use your understanding of the moons and tides and that kind of stuff as an ally. We've all had, even as much as I knew and understood about the tides and everything, when I would go to the Columbia River, when I would go to Clear Lake, when I would go to Shasta, I tried to force like everybody else. And as I got to the point where I said, you know, I don't need to do all that stuff anymore. And as I've aged, it's like, man, dude, you understood so much more than your competition. You tried to, I was always my own worst enemy. Would
Mm.
overthink things. I've had this conversation with Phil Dutra, who's going to do extremely well out in Alabama. Um, on the Delta, we had some intangibles. Had some guys that we were trying to beat that we just couldn't beat because of whatever. We had some ugly situations that were going on. So, but fishing against ghosts, I guess you could say. I hate to even bring that up, but
Yeah, no, but the lakes that you would go to, like you still had the same moon phase. I mean, you did, and there's no tide at Shasta, there's no tide at Clear Lake, there's no tide at the Columbia River except for current, obviously when they're drawing. But you had the wind current you talked about and the moon phases, and I was like, you know, the window of moon phases better than when I listened to you. I'm like, and I remember you used to tell me about this. Like you cared as much about if I was fishing tidal, but you always wanted to know, and you would always look at the moon when we would talk about. You would help me before tournaments because I was able to call you before the off limits and say, Bobby, I'm going here, I'm going there. Let's just talk fishing for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And I loved your mentorship. You know, tide or no tide, you also have a pretty good read on what's going on with moon phases and how even the lunar stuff really creates such a predictable dynamic. Was that
yeah.
fair to say?
So with that being said, there's the way that I look at it, the way that I break it down is you've got you've got 14 days during the month where you can catch them on a reaction day. You
Yep.
got 16 days a month where you can't,
Yep.
and that's kind of that's kind of the breakdown. So depending on where your tournament falls, if you understand, um, you know, a waxing moon, a waning moon, a quarter moon, front side, back side, that can help you understand why you had such a horrible practice. I used a crankbait. I used a chatterbait. I tried to fish every nook and cranny of this lake. I've only got 3 days to see this place. And man, I just, you might have gone right over the bank that the tournament's going to be won on because you were throwing a chatterbait. If you would have just stopped and pitch a drop shot into the weed holes, you
Yeah.
you found the bank that you needed, but those fish were not going to expose themselves. And that's
Right.
what I was trying to get across to the guys. There's You got to know when to hold them, you got to know when to fold them, or at least have an idea. No, we don't know. We can just make an educated guess, understanding just with a basic understanding of moon phases. And there's but that gets so deep and it does get pretty complex. My thing, it's not, I don't look at, this sounds contradictory, but I don't really I use moon phases to assist. We got a straight line wind that might be materializing here. Um, can you hear
It
me with the
sounds like
wind
you're
coming?
getting some wind right now. What is that about?
Yeah, yeah. Like, like right now, I like right as this stuff is starting to pull in here, I would have liked to have been throwing a frog in a couple of nice little pockets right about now as this starts to go down. Um,
There's that wind current you talked about on any lake.
yeah,
Here's that wind current coming in.
yeah, and it's gonna, yeah, there's gonna be some really cool things that start to happen here on the lake. I hope it does this tomorrow because I'm going fishing tomorrow. I've got a lot of church stuff today, but um, anyway, there's I use a tide book, and I use a couple of specific. Just because you have a California Delta tide book, if you talk to me, I'm a Central Delta guy. You talk to a Northern Delta guy, you talk to East Delta guy, you talk to a South Delta guy. My high tide is going to be between an hour and 2 hours different than North Delta, East Delta, South Delta guy.
Right.
So when you say your windows of opportunity, my windows are going to be different than that guy, that guy, that guy.
That's
I've
true.
got
That's
one
true.
location. I I've got one location on the Delta that I do all of my calculations off of, and as far as I'm concerned, it is the center of the universe. It is the center of it is where for my salooner understanding, it's what I base all my calculations off of. And when I look at some of these salooner books and all that, um, they got their minors and their majors. There's some days where the minors are better than the majors.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because you're throwing a swim bait. It, just because it's a major right now and you're not killing them, let me talk to 10 guys that are on the lake right now between 3 and 5:30. Let me talk to 10 guys. Byron and Bobby are in the same boat. We understand moon, all that stuff, and we put ourselves in one of the best sections of the lake. And from 3 to 5:30, we caught two. We had 2 for 9 pounds.
Right.
That guy had 5 for 26. That guy had 4 for 16. And we had 2 for 9. And they all caught him between. He got his first bite at 3:07. He got his first bite at 3:31. He got that. They got nothing leading up to that. They all got on the water at noon. Didn't get their first bite till somewhere in that 3 o'clock range. We didn't just because we understood when the key eat time was, doesn't mean that we're going to. We were in the right place at the right time, all that kind of stuff. But when you got 10 guys, that's what you're now competing against because everybody else is here. Is that guy fishing for quality or is he fishing for quantity? You get the Rayburn boys. You get the Rayburn boys that have got their XD10 that are hitting the tips of those. His boat is sitting in 18, and he's getting that crankbait down to 21, and he's tapping that one long extended that comes off the Black Forest that comes right where that creek channel swings. And between 3 and 5:30,
Right.
he's got 3 points like that, and he's going to hit them all in an hour and a half. And he's got 4 for 31. Man, I lost that 5th one. I did a Byron Velvick thing. If I had that 5th one, you guys are done.
Right.
I crushed you with 4. He had 5 for 16. He had 5 for 17. Didn't get his first bite till 3:30. Did most of his damage from 3:30 to 4:15. That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
If you think about some of your greatest, when you did your swim bait thing, they didn't start biting that thing right off the bat. Or maybe you had a couple of taps, a couple of, I lost it. They just barely got him, that kind of, but you did your damage in this. There was this hour.
Right.
And then
the last bit of the day, you could be there all day long. And it was either first thing in the morning at low light or it was at the end of the day. It was right before weigh-in. To your point, it was a grind all day long. And it was either low light or when there was a breeze on the water. And it was that corner, Byron's corner at Clear Lake. It was key to either the second time I won there. I mean, it was as fast as you could get your boat there and start making casts, as fast as you could put your trolling motor down and started casting before that sun hit the water. 56-degree water, 58-degree water, pretty cold for a swim bait, but they were eating those hitch right off the bat. Sun hits the water, and I know it's one of those deals. When you're in the corner, you grind it out. The first time when I had 83 pounds, I was sight fishing with everybody else, and I would go there at the end of the day, Bobby. I knew when the sun, when there got a little ripple on that pond, and there was a little wind blowing, and the sun was starting to set, that's when it was getting juicy out there. To your point. And then on the last day, you're like, I'm going to stay here the whole day. And then you find out exactly what the time is because you're spending the whole day doing the exact same thing. And man, all of a sudden, to your point, the lights click on, as you said, everything comes, the stars line up, and it starts happening, man. And it's like they're there, but they decide to start eating all of a sudden. And I know you know that very well.
Yeah. Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. Am I breaking up a little bit, Byron?
Sometimes, yeah. I think we can fix it. Hopefully we can fix it in audio and post-production. Am I breaking up when I'm talking to you?
Okay. Yeah, and for those guys that there's so many skeptics that the moon thing just doesn't work for them or whatever, that whatever, it's fine. I don't argue with people anymore. I mean, I got the journals to back up.
Are you done with do you miss tournament fishing?
What's that?
Do you miss tournament fishing?
I don't. I was gonna really give it one more shot with my understanding of what's going. It's really crazy. I bowed out when I feel like I understand it better than I ever have. And I was going to do the Rayburn thing. We bought a place down at Rayburn. Um, and to be honest with you, I heard a Casting Crowns song, Only Jesus, and all the trophies won, all that kind of stuff. It put everything in perspective that all that stuff doesn't matter.
No.
It's
I,
my faith, and I know that there's a lot of guys out there that do what I did, bass fish, and do what you did, and all that, that are struggling, that are looking for some peace in their life, and so I feel like that's now my part of my calling, to try and help guys and lead them to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I maybe that sounds quirky and all that kind of stuff. And the guys that know me from back in the day, they understand that, hey man, that guy was a professional beer drinker. That guy was he sounded like a sailor that just got off the boat right into port. And yeah, I agree. I'm the worst. Chasing women, all that stuff. I did absolutely. I was a professional at all that stuff. And I never had any peace in my life, but now I do. And so
good for you. Yeah.
I know there's a lot of guys on the trail and a lot of guys that have aspirations of getting on the trail. And I just feel like if they can go faith, family, fishing, and fill up your spiritual live well, and then
Right.
the live well in your boat will be full most
Right.
of the time. You're still gonna have to
Yep.
work at it. Yeah, I feel like if you get those priorities like that, you'll be in good shape.
In your career of fishing tournaments, I have a segment, and we have a couple conversation points. I'm not sure if D. Thomas is going to factor into this one or if it's going to be something else. But talk about did you ever draw a D. Thomas? Because I did. I drew D. Thomas at the Delta. Did you ever draw a D? You remember when it used to be boat to boat, mono a mono, pro versus pro? You remember those days?
I do. I remember the worst boat on boat draw that I ever had was when I drew Greg Warren and he caught a 10-pounder behind me, and the first time Bassmaster ever came out. That one was mine. I knew it was going to be between me and Robert. And
Robert Lee and
I was
you, what head to head, pro draw. Bassmaster shows up and you have to flip a coin, and you have to go out with somebody, and you guys are competing for fish in your boat.
yeah. You're breaking up a little bit. I can't understand that whole thing. But we flipped the coin. Well, after the first day, I think I was in second or third place. And I hadn't even ran my Sherman Lake stuff, but I was starting in Disappointment Slough. I was grabbing one or two big ones, and then I'm going to go finish out with 4-pounders in Sherman Lake on that bottom, that low water, and on the low swim. And the second day I had Greg Warren with me, and he goes, "Dude, I'm not even going to fight you for the boat. This is your pond. You're going to win this thing. I just want the bait you're using." And I said, "Cool." I gave him a black frog, a black snag-proof frog. And Gene Buchholz, who was running the camera boat, he came over and he said, "Hey, we're going to follow you all. Ray Scott wants us to follow you all day tomorrow." And I was like, "I ain't putting my Delta hotspots on national TV on TNN. That ain't going to happen." I said, we talk about the Delta and the beauty of the Delta. I said, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to catch a big one between 8:30 and 9 o'clock at Disappointment Slough." I said, "Why don't you meet me at the mouth of Disappointment Slough at about 8 o'clock, 8:15? We'll run over there, give me the microphone, do the thing. And then I got to be over in Sherman by 9:30. I'm going to be done in Disappointment by 9:15.
Wow.
Okay. I met those guys. We wagon trained over I had this little island with a little, anyway, the day before I caught 2 5-pounders on it, one on one side, one on the other. But when I caught the 1-5, I moved mama. Mama moved. I'm going to get her tomorrow. I mean, I was like, okay, she's a good one. Anyway. And so the next day I roll over there, they follow me over, and I'm talking to the camera guy. And I hate to show Gene how to do this. Because he's talked a lot out there in the West Delta, knew a bunch of guys and all that. And I was like, oh man, then my whole disappointment program is going to be done, which I was just starting to learn disappointment. And, Robert already knew disappointment and why. He was so far ahead of the curve, and he capitalized on that so big time. Highest quality bass in the Delta in that era. And Robert had such a jump on everybody. He understood it. High tide, low tide, because he did the Byron thing, Potomac River. Don't go anyplace. Learn what they do on the high and the low. Anyway, so I go over there at about I get over there about 8:30, 8:45. We get over to the island, and I'm telling him, I go, "You see that island?" I said, The sun's coming up. I'm directing the shot. I go, the sun's coming up over there. Why don't you get behind that right there? And I'm on this side of the island. Island's like this.
This is in the tournament. You're directing the shot in the tournament. You're telling the camera guy.
As we pull up to the island, I don't have to make a cast on this thing. I really need to be casting on this thing, from 8:30 to 9, 8:30 to 9:15. In that 45-minute window, and I think it's really going to happen 8:30 to 9. Anyway, so 8 o'clock, 8:15, right, when we hook up, boom, get over there. You guys go over there. Island's right here. I want you guys over here. I'm going to come this way. I think, and I'm having this conversation as I'm leading up to this. I said, Gene, shut your motor off. Trolling motor, please go that way, and don't get anywhere near that. I don't want them to know we're here. Just stay at least 40 yards off that dock, please. I'm going to come down this way. I'm going to see what I can get leading up before she's. And I'm telling these two guys, and this guy that I draw is taking notes. I tell him, I said that big girl is under where the dock goes like this, the gangplank. She's right under the gangplank. She's about 2 yards this way. I threw under the gangplank yesterday, got the 5-pounder, drug the 5-pounder over her. Big wobble. She took off and went under the dock. Dang it. And I knew as I'm winding that one in, oh man, that was bigger than the one I got on here. Put her in live. I'll get that one tomorrow. Anyway, but it's a timing thing. I can't start on these fish. It won't go. It's that water level thing, black line, all that stuff. Get those guys where I need them. I come around the thing. I'm pitching about that far. I want to catch a couple 3-pounders so I can get comfortable, so I can grab me a couple big ones, and then I'm going to finish up with 4-pounders in Sherman. This is going to be awesome. And I get over here, and I made one. I really thought I'd get a 3 to 5-pounder on the front pace before I make this throw right here. Mm-hmm. And I get to right here, and this guy's running out of patience, I guess. And I go like this, and then I watch this frog go flying by me. And it went right under that gangplank. And I looked at him, I looked at the camera guy, and I won't tell you what Gene said. What kind of a bop, 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 beep, beep, beep. And I looked at him, I looked back over there, and he moved that frog, and she went, whoo, whoo. And I'm like, oh, you got it. And she goes, oh, she clobbered. Got her. He's back there, and I'm like, what do I do? I've never really done this, man, mano y mano. I want to shoot this guy right now. I want to push this guy in the leg. What am I going to do? National TV's right here. This guy's got my dream fish. This is my dream tournament. This is the first time Bassmasters has ever been here. And this guy's got my fish. What do you do? Don't do stupid, Bobby.
Oh my gosh.
I reached down, I grabbed this fish. That's a 10. I'm like, that's a 10-pounder. And I gave it to him like that. And this guy's like, he had 4 pounds yesterday. I had 17 or 18. He goes, I'm out of this thing. I just want the bait that you're using. I'll follow your lead. Yeah, he followed my lead. All right. And
he catches a 10-pounder, which was the tournament for you, and he made a long cast over your shoulder as you're working your way up to catch a fish that you knew was there, that you were ready to catch on camera. You orchestrated the entire shot, and you got poached on the one cast.
It was horrible. And then he put that fish in the live well. He goes, I'm a player now. I was like, oh no. That dude, the rest of the day was I bumped into him so many times. I go out to Sherman. Hey, I go out to Sherman Lake. I go out to Sherman Lake that afternoon, and they're these 4. They're 3.5 to 5-pounders that are in hippie grass patches that are the size of a basketball, 2 basketballs, and they're isolated, and you don't know which ones they're going to be in. But I have to drive over a sandbar that's got this much water. I got to be doing 65 over the sandbar to get into this section. And I mean, I'm going 80 yards over about that much water, hoping that my skag doesn't grab. Otherwise, we're going to be here till tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
I get into my ditch, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I did end up catching a couple of nice fish in disappointment, but this guy now is a whole new beast. I pull into my little pocket where I should be able to catch 5 for 20 without a 5 to go with my 4 3/4 that I have out of disappointment this morning. And this guy's right here under my armpit. But you had to throw it. You had to land right on the little hippie grass, American pondweed, let it sit, bob the nose, work it this far, stop, and they would eat it. They ate it on the stop, on the pause every time. And this guy, he started seeing what I was doing, and I would throw it this one, he'd throw it the next one.
Oh my gosh.
So now I start to hustle. I start to hustle, and I'd have those 4 or 5 pounders run out there and grab it because I am so mentally hosed right now. And I'm trying to race this guy to catch my fish that I understand better than anybody on the planet. I'm having all these crazy conversations with myself like I've been having since 8:47 this morning. And I'm like, what is going on? Anyway, I get back. It's a disaster. I think he got one or two of those 4 pounders. I get back and I'm standing at the weigh-in table, at the weigh-in tub, and Ray Scott comes over to me, and he holds his hand over the microphone. He goes, Bobby, he's got that cowboy hat on. He's got a little scarf. And he looked at me like somebody had just died. Ray Scott. And he goes, Bobby, he goes, I heard what happened to you today. Cameraman pulled me off the side and told me. He goes, man, that was some bush league stuff right there, boy. But it's going to make for some great TV. No. So anyway, I think I ended up fifth in that stupid thing. Robert ended up winning. He deserved it. Robert worked so hard. I think
Yeah.
Robert's the best fisherman ever. But anyway,
He was a Delta guru. Okay, I love it. I love it. Hey, I know you showed me a frog. I got to talk
man,
frogs with you because am I breaking up real bad right
you're
now?
breaking up, Byron. I don't know if it's this
What?
weather.
Hey, it's Byron Bellick with Fish Tales. Man, kind of a weird situation here. We just lost Bobby Barrack in the middle of what is our fifth podcast. Let's see, we had Dave Mercer, Rick Clunn. We did two with Rick Clunn, Ken Duke, Mike McInnes, and now we're doing Bobby Barrack. And what happened was I saw Bobby on Bass After Dark, and it was great. And he was telling the stories, and I've known Bobby for a long, long, long time, since we were, God, 25 years ago, maybe more, 30 years ago. And so I'm like, oh, I got to get Bobby on Fish Tales. And I was excited to get him on Fish Tales, and we talked about shooting it. And then I'm not sure if this, what you're seeing now, is going to be at the end or before, but you hear the wind chimes starting to go, and he's like, hey, we're getting some weather. We're getting some weather. And they're in Texas. He's way up by the Texarkana area. We start losing Bobby. And he's telling some stories. God, he's got great stories, sharing some wisdom with tides and moon phases. And then Bobby, I'm not sure we're going to have to cobble this one together. This is all new to me. I am just learning podcasting. And I thank you guys for checking out Fish Tales. It's been a lot of fun. But suddenly, this is one of those things where we had a technical difficulty. And so Fish Tales right now is kind of in this weird thing. Are we going to do a part two? Am I going to have to go to Livingston and talk to Patrick, who's the editor? And gosh, everybody at Livingston's been so great. Helped me kind of put this whole thing together. So I decided I'd just go ahead and shoot this piece now. Tell you guys a little bit about the studio. Behind me is the old U.S. Open check, the Fish Tales pinball machine. This is why the show's called Fish Tales. If you guys can see that, that's a pinball machine that was given to me. And I first saw that at Lake of the Ozarks years ago when I was on tour as a kid, and we were playing this at Lake of the Ozarks. Well, I win my second U.S. Open, and the agent, Donna Casase at the time, has one of those delivered to the Money House, the lake house in Boulder City. So that Fish Tales pinball machine was played by Skeet and Murray and Robert Lee, and everybody that came to the house in Boulder City would play that. Even, gosh, heartfelt Aaron Martins. He had so many high scores on that because, unbeknownst to most people, Aaron was as good at pinball as he was at fishing. And Aaron dominated that machine. There were a ton of high scores in there. I wish it had never gotten unplugged and those high scores would have stayed because Aaron loved that machine. And that's real heartfelt. Up here in the corner, you see my first double-digit bass. Caught that when I was 17 years old. Just got my driver's license, drove down to Lake Henshaw, and rented a boat and caught that 10-pound, 10-ounce bass right there. Trophies. The lampshade is my Falcon Lake, 131 pounds at Falcon Lake. So this is a home studio. We decorated it. I got to thank Livingston for everything they've done. Livingston drove it. We got Mercury, Camus, Trico Fishing. They're all sponsors of the show. And this gives me a chance to encourage everybody to check out the sponsors and especially the Livingston Lure app. The Livingston Lure app is it has all kinds of cool features in it. You can actually see this podcast at Livingston Lures app, but also we have Captain Livingston, and that's an AI generated captain that gives you fishing advice. How cool is this? So when you go into the Livingston app, you go down to Livingston to Captain Livingston, you put in shad spawn or bedding fish or cold water rising or cold water falling or power generating, on the lake. And then it gives you the read on how to catch more fish or maybe have a better day on the lake just in general based on the conditions that you put into Captain Livingston. So be sure to check that out. With regards to Bobby, we're going to do a part 2, I hope. I got so many great questions for Bobby Barrack, and he is the consummate storyteller. Like I said, I've known the guy for 30 years. I just finished talking to him, and maybe this segment's going to be after that, where I said, hey, worst pro draw ever. And he gave a great story, which included Ray Scott. So these are like pearls of great stories. I also want to ask him the best, worst hook story ever, because we all got these great hook stories. Hooked in the face, like I think Abe Mercer talked about hooking his mom in the eyelid, if you haven't seen that. So check out the other episodes. I also want to do the one that's really becoming the most popular in Fishtails, and that's called The One That Got Away. And the one that got away, I always preface it by saying it doesn't need to be a fish. So far, with everybody that's been on Fishtails, it has not been a fish. But with Bobby Barrack, I think it needs to be a fish because Bobby tells these amazing stories. And I want to hear Bobby's take on the one that got away. So stay tuned. I'm going to get out of here now. My daughter, insert picture here, when she was a little girl and followed me around on the tour and went to one of my last tour events. I got to put that picture in right here. She starts high school in 2 days. So we're going to go do some back to school shopping this afternoon. I do wish we would have finished the Bobby Barrack episode, but this will probably be the end of it. This will be the close of it, or maybe the start of it. We're definitely going to come back with Bobby and figure out his audio connection, his internet connection. And I just want to thank you guys for joining me, supporting Fishtails. I don't know about the like and the subscribe button and all that stuff down there, but please be sure to check out more of our episodes, like us, subscribe us, do all that stuff. We're streaming on all the major platforms, and that's all I got to say. Fishtails, Byron Velvick. Appreciate you guys joining us. Bye.
Fishtails has been brought to you by Livingston Lures. Learn more at livingstonlures.com. Fishtails is also supported by these fine sponsors: Trika Fishing, Mercury Outboards, and Canis Boats.